Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other host this week is from Lazy Gaming Guys. It is Scott. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks. Glad to be here. A little sooner than normal, so that's really fun. I'm always glad to be back, like close to each other.
Yeah, this week was cursed because when I went through and I was asking, I go through the rotation in order, and then like Millennial Mike and Maceo could both do it next week. So one of them had to then do it the week after that. And I'm like, what's going on with this week? To the point where Kelly's like, I mean, I'll try to jump on. We'll just have the baby crying throughout. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. And then I asked Matt he was on a cruise. He might've been on the same cruise as you. So he didn't get back to me on time. And I'm like, okay, don't worry about it. I'll catch you in a few weeks. And then I asked you, and what was my plan after you? I don't know. Probably would have just asked someone else.
Probably Julian would be the only other one.
I don't know if I asked Sam.
But I think he was also on recently too.
Yeah, and Sam's in the middle of moving somewhere. So anyway.
Yeah, Sam's moving, so.
Yeah, it worked out though. We got Scott on. And if this is your very first episode of the show, the way we format it is we go through this week's news, and then we end it with the Brocat Block, which is what Scott and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 565. So the Super Mario Brothers movie, once again, makes headlines right here on the show as it broke the record for the highest grossing Rotten film at the domestic box office. Despite a 59% Rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes, the blockbuster from Universal's Illumination and Nintendo raked in an impressive $549.2 million in the US and Canada ticket sales, and this surpasses Disney's The Lion King remake, and it now holds the 14th spot among the highest grossing domestic films of all time. And of course, this is not adjusting for inflation, but this is a pretty good example of, once again, the reviews. They do affect box office. Whether or not people believe it, it really does. But in this case, it's one of those animated films where I think audiences did not care what the ratings were and ended up seeing it for themselves, or went in knowing that this was just a video game film.
Yeah, I think most people just honestly had lower expectations going into it because the trailers were okay, but nothing mind-blowing. So it's like, oh, you go in with kind of lower expectations, and you know what? It met or, surpassed a lot of those for a lot of people, apparently. And it did fine. Like, the movie did well. It's going to have more stuff coming out from it. So it does show you that, yes, the critics don't always know what you want to see as the viewer. And that's what people need to remember, is that it's like, no, make your own decisions on this. Make informed decisions. Don't just look at, oh, well, Tomatoes says this is, amazing, or Tomatoes says this is great or terrible. Like,
or even audience, where people are like, I heard this was bad. I heard Fast was bad. I heard that Flash was bad. Although I did hear that the Flash, we're going to go into that because I'm going to flip this all of a sudden. But yeah, even audience scores, it's as irrelevant as fucking critics.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of, if you, like we were talking beforehand, before we started, that you're going to go watch Fast 10. I heard it was bad, but you being a fan of Fast and Furious, or it's like, I'm still going to go see it and make my own decision. Because it's like, you're a fan of the series, like the franchise. You're, of course, still going to go see 10, even if everyone says, oh, it's terrible. Mm-hmm. Just as if you were going to go see it if everyone was saying it was great.
Yep.
And I wasn't going to see it one way or another. So it never impacted my decision, and it never impacted yours. And that's how it should be. Like, these reviews, it can be like, oh, yeah, I heard this. But that's all it should be. It's just yeah, I heard this, or...
Which means nothing, when it's all said and done. I think one of the funniest things about this Mario movie is, I don't know how well, like, the other Illumination films do with critics normally, like what are those little Homer Simpson guys? What are they called?
Minions.
The Minions. Like, I don't know how well the Minions are usually taken by critics, but they tend to do really well in the box office because of kids. Kids love those movies. And I think with Mario, it's a lot of families, a lot of people our age, a lot of people with kids that took them to the theater, like I did with Leo, and the kids loved it. Like I have a coworker, and she was like, my nephews, we all went. We bought the Mario movie for $30 because that's cheaper than taking them all to the theater, and we own it, so they've already seen it. They saw it 2 times on the first day. They love it. And she's like, and I'm watching it. And I'm like, yeah, that's from the video game. Yeah, that's from the video game. So whoever made the movie really likes the video game. And I'm like, these are all true things. Like all of this is the main thing though. The common factor here is that kids are loving it. It's going to be their nostalgic go-to with how successful this is in when they're 20, 30 years, they're going to look back and remember that Mario movie as one of their childhood movies. Just like for us, it would be, Jurassic Park or whatever was big back then, Terminator. And I keep naming like movies that clearly aren't for kids, but they were. So
Terminator,
Mario,
Jurassic Park 2, saw that in theaters.
Die Hard
3. That I never saw as a kid. That I saw as an adult.
I saw it on TV in Spanish. They would play it on Telemundo and it would be dubbed over.
They also censor all the curse words?
That's a great question. I don't remember because I don't think they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know.
I found out recently that Speedy Gonzalez is allowed to say pendejo.
Where, in foreign countries? Or here in the US?
In Mexico. Like in the Spanish dub. He is allowed to say that.
That's crazy because it's not the worst. It's not like the F word in English, but it's not something you normally see. There's no equivalent of that in English that it's like, oh, that's
how much they love Speedy Gonzalez.
That's
that
awesome.
They're like, yeah, no, he gets to say this type of stuff and call the other characters this.
He's the exception.
Yeah, he can get away with it. You all can't.
He's just too fast. We can't censor him quick enough. Speedy Gonzalez. So, especially if you have kids, they'll like the movie, and clearly it still has legs. So I'm waiting for the Blu-ray release. I was kind of tempted because Leo keeps seeing the movie on streaming services, on Vudu. When you turn on the Roku, it'll show it right there, like available on Vudu, on Amazon for $29.99. But I still want to own the physical version because one day I may not have internet, and internet goes down, whatever, and I want the physical, and it comes with a code anyway. So.
Hey, maybe around Black Friday it'll be on sale.
Oh, that's true. Very true. And that's right around the corner. We'll be in November before you know it.
Oh, yeah.
And something else that will be here by November and also probably on sale on Black Friday is Mortal Kombat 1, which was announced by Warner Brothers Game. They're calling it a semi-reboot of the iconic franchise. So the game promised a reimagined Mortal Kombat universe with new characters and a fresh fighting system. Players who pre-order the game will receive Shang Tsung as a free playable character. So console players can access the beta version in August, which is a month before the official launch. And Mortal Kombat 1 will be available on Xbox Series X and S, PC, and other major systems on September 19th. I don't know if you beat the last Mortal Kombat game, but from what I understand, I didn't play them either. There's several endings in the game, and there's 2 that are canon, one of which is that the whole universe gets rebooted with Liu Kang, I guess, is like the messiah figure of that universe. And then another one, the universe kind of continues with Shang Tsung as the ruler. And this trailer kind of shows both sides of it. So from what I'm seeing, this game is saying that both of those endings are canon, and that the rebooted universe, which is Liu Kang's, and the continued universe, which is Shang Tsung's, are fighting for existence, basically.
Interesting. I don't know how I feel, though, about a reboot of the entire series after they just did that like 3 games ago. Because Mortal Kombat 9 was a reboot of the franchise, and then they did 10 and 11, and then now they're rebooting again. It just seems a little... like, it seems it's just their go-to whenever they just get stuck in a writing corner of just, reboot it.
Well, the nice thing about this one is that you do get the old story in there.
Yeah, and that's the one, although with 9 they also did as well.
Oh, really? It was a semi-reboot?
It was that Raiden saw the future of like Armageddon and everything, and then had to correct it and change the events that would lead to Mortal Kombat Armageddon.
Oh, just like the Nightmare timeline. Interesting.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing with that. So that was the main plot of Mortal Kombat 9. So it was interesting, and it's just I see it going the same route as this one, where it's like, oh, you know, we're just rebooting again and using concepts from the other one. I mean, I'll buy it. I'll still play it.
Yeah,
But I will
we
be
don't buy
waiting
them
for
for
the
the
Game of the Year
story.
edition. Yeah. Even then, I'll wait for the Game of the Year edition in like 3 years, where it comes with all the DLC for $20.
Kind of like Street Fighter. Street
that's
Fighter
my
6 is going to
version.
have that too.
Yeah, but Street Fighter 6, I think I'll actually be buying day one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the story mode I played the demo of, and I found it really fun.
Nice. How's the gameplay itself?
It just feels
Traditional
like
Street
very
Fighter?
basic Street Fighter. Like, I mean, it feels like if you love Street Fighter, boom, here you go. You'll feel right at home. There is a new like mode, troll mode, that's a little like beginner mode, kind of like the auto combo system in other games and stuff like that.
Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah, it's a little more like that, and then you can change it to the classic Street Fighter mode, so you can choose either one.
See, I like that. The
so
other
it's
game,
nice to have that available, but
like Dragon Ball Fighter Z had that option as well, where you can do like the beginner mode and you can basically button mash and still get the combos off. And if you button mash in the right order, then you can do your, link them up to your supers and all that. That for me makes it fun. And I understand that it's not a handicap for actual players of the franchise, because professional players don't want it on that mode. They actually like the more traditional controls because they have more control over what the character does. And that's what I always liked about that balance, is that if you want to have fun, use the beginner mode, but it's not going to let you run through pro players. They're still going to be, you can still master the controls in a different way.
You get a pro player, they will still kick your ass if you're playing on the assisted controls. Like, they know a lot more about game mechanics and everything else. You're just kind of doing it, but you're also having fun playing. And
Exactly.
that's the nice part, is that, it's not overpowered other than against the CPU.
Yeah, I'm pretty tempted on Mortal Kombat 1, on Street Fighter. I am in a mood for fighting games especially, and it seems like we're going to get that this year especially. But there was also a leak for Mortal Kombat 1 as upcoming DLC fighters. They're pretty famous, Mortal Kombat and Injustice, for having some wild DLC stuff that people don't expect, like the Xenomorphs, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the latest Injustice, the Freddy Krueger, the horror characters, Rambo, Terminator, all kinds of characters. And the first round of those did get revealed through Amazon Italy, which include Peacemaker, Homelander, Omni-Man, Ermac, Takeda, and Quan Chi. Although they have not been officially confirmed, previous reports do align with these leaked names. So I'd say pretty surprising. It's not, they're more like modern popular characters rather than some retro additions. It seems like they're going with, Omni-Man is huge right now with Invincible, Homelander, of course, with the boys. I don't know why Pedal Maker's there because Pedal Gun is there.
The other two out of the three, I'm like, I mean, the boys was massively popular, and so was Invincible. So it's like, oh, okay, those make sense. And then it's just like Peacemaker. Really? Was it that popular? Like, I heard people talking about it when it was first airing, and then no one really mentioned it ever again.
Mm-hmm. I remember HBO Max lied about the numbers.
Ever. Yeah.
They were like, James Gunn too. He was like, it's the most streamed anything. And it's like, no, it's not, James. He doesn't use a record of it. It's pretty, that's the weird addition. And I think it's because, Gunn is in there now and they're trying to, really keep him, show him support, or whatever it is. And that's the downside to it. Not a character I'd obviously use. If I fought against them, got to use the fatality. No exception. It's just, that's what the one cringe addition to it. Ermac, Takeda, Quan Chi. I mean, that's pretty standard for Mortal Kombat. I think characters that people more or less expect at this point as extras.
And what makes this a little more credible too is the fact that it's got that balance of, there's 3 kind of guest characters and then 3 Mortal Kombat characters. That kind of seems to always be their thing, is to kind of have a balance between, here's just some Mortal Kombat characters and then some surprise guest characters. Sad to see Quan Chi just, reduced to a DLC character, but I mean, even Shang Tsung is now just DLC character.
And I think he looks from the trailer, he looks like the movie. Did you notice that? Like there's both the classic and then in the trailer when they're showing like the Shang Tsung from the old universe, it's the movie Shang Tsung, which I thought was fucking amazing.
Huh. Maybe the movie version's going to be the DLC one?
From the trailer,
Maybe that's
it
how
looked
they're
like
going to do it?
from the trailer it looked like it was the classic Shang Tsung, but in the like when they showed it at the very end in the leak or
Right.
whatever, like pre-order it now to get this and but they're in the trailer when you see them like floating in the sky or whatever. I'm like, that's from the 90s. Like it's the actual Shang Tsung.
Yeah, that or
which
maybe it's just costumes and stuff like that.
could
Because that'd be kind of
yeah,
cool.
could be a skin. It could be him transforming because you know he transforms into different
Yeah.
characters all the time. But I know that they did make that version like canon in the one of the last games where I think even the voice too,
he's
right?
canon,
He came
he's in
back.
the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe so.
pretty
I believe it's
amazing.
the voice actor or the actor came back to
Right.
provide the voice.
Yeah, he's still around. Do you look fondly back on that Mortal Kombat movie? And is that one of those that you enjoyed back then? I mean, I know it's on lists as like terrible movies, but I think it's
It was
a
one
legitimately
that-
good film.
I mean, I was never a huge Mortal Kombat fan growing up. Like I played a few occasionally. So I looked at the film as just it was okay. Like I never had any like, oh my God, it was terrible. I mean, I was watching movies like House of the Dead, which if you've ever seen that movie, it is terrible. House of the Dead 1 and 2. And I was like fine watching those.
Mm.
So I never really thought, oh man, Mortal Kombat the movie is terrible. Plus that soundtrack was killer even
Yeah.
back then.
Oh yeah,
Like there was no one denying that theme music wasn't the theme music of Mortal Kombat.
absolutely. And it is a movie that I watched as a kid over and over again on VHS, including that terrible sequel. I'm like, yeah, because I loved Sub-Zero is my favorite character. So when we got to see that his brother shows up in the sequel, I'm like, oh, this is just like Mortal Kombat 3. You know, I remembered everything. Like I was a little bit in the lore of it. But even when I go back and I look at these films when I worked at the comic shop, as soon as they added Mortal Kombat on HBO Max, we would play that all the time. And I think we had like Funko Pops or something. And we told the owner, like, so we sell Mortal Kombat stuff. It counts. And we would play it. And he might have even been told, no, don't play it. And like he played it anyway every now and again, one of my coworkers. And when we did, like we would quote it. We would be like, and after watching it so many times there, I'm like, one, Shang Tsung's actor is incredible. Like he gives it his all.
Yeah.
He's actually pretty good. He's not cheeseball about it. There's some good martial arts in it. The special effects are, you know, they're dated, but you know, for what they were back then.
I mean, they're going to be dated by nowadays standards. Like very few movies back then look gorgeous still by nowadays standards.
Right. Yeah, you could maybe name Terminator 2, but there's very few of those. And
The original Jurassic
Oh,
Park
yeah.
looks
Yeah,
still
that's true.
very good for its effects.
but I love the movie. I have it digitally. I have it physically, and it's a good one. Before we move on from Mortal Kombat, I got to hear who's your favorite Mortal Kombat character? Not one to play as necessarily, but just your favorite one.
I've always been fond of Johnny Cage.
Oh, no shit.
Like I always love
The
those
Nut
like
Punch?
joke type characters.
Okay.
Just like Dan Hibiki in Street Fighter's been like my favorite character in Street Fighter. So with Mortal Kombat, Johnny Cage was always the kind of jokey type character. So that's always been my kind of favorite default character is Johnny Cage, just the Hollywood actor that's there. And should he be there against gods and everything else? Probably not, but he is, and he's holding his own.
I love that in the movie, and maybe they did that in the early games too, but in the movie, they're like, no, he's actually a good fighter, but he happened to later on just make movies.
Yeah, I saw him as like the Krillin of the series, where it's like,
There you go.
he's just a really powerful human, but somehow is able to hold his own. Who knows?
Are you a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan?
He's okay.
Okay, I was going to say, because that's who he was based on. That's where the Nut Punch comes from.
Yeah, the Nut Punch was always classic as well for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I think it was Bloodsport where he does it, Jean-Claude, and Ed Boon was like, oh, that's awesome. Let's put that in here.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some more gaming news as employees at a GameStop store in Michigan resigned on the release date of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom due to poor working conditions. There was a note posted outside the store mentioning overworking, underpayment, and unrealistic expectations. The incident highlights ongoing discontent among GameStop employees. GameStop has not provided a comment on the matter. So what ended up happening that day is it was shut down for 3 hours, and eventually the district called in other workers from the surrounding stores to reopen the store and basically run it on a skeleton crew for the rest of the day until they can get more hires in there. But that's kind of been an ongoing problem. I mean, Maceo and I used to work at GameStop, and even back then, there were some unrealistic expectations of, hey, make sure to sell power-up rewards cards, make sure to sell pre-orders. All right. Hey, now you got to sell the GameStop credit card. What? Yeah, you got to have a percentage on that too. Okay. Oh, you also got to sell warranties. I'm like, are you kidding me? We got to sell warranties? And then one of the last things, they're like, you got to sell iPads and phones and used tablets. It's like, come on, man. And those were all used. Your percentage based on how many you sold in the day would get you more hours the following pay week. And if you didn't sell that week, you would get less hours. So it was a terrible incentive because it would cause you to pressure customers into buying things. Or if you saw a regular that never pre-order shit, and it's like, fuck, like no one wanted to ring them up because that would hurt your numbers. And it sounds like it's just continued to get worse since then. I know they laid off on some of the metrics, but with employees quitting, I mean, that's kind of unheard of even from back in my day.
It's very sad for GameStop. Like they shot themselves in the foot with a lot of those metrics and stuff like that. Like pre-orders, I at least understood to an extent because pre-orders for the most part wouldn't harm, like most people would be okay with it. I mean, I never saw the hatred people had over pre-orders. It's like, I mean, okay, I'm putting the money towards the game. So that way I don't have to put it all towards it, in 2 weeks when it comes out. I can pay it now and just walk in and pick it up. Like I was still going to spend the money on the game one way or another. I didn't pay extra. So I didn't really understand that hatred. And even if I decided I didn't want it, oh man, the game's broken. Well, okay, I can cancel that pre-order.
Plus, if it was a more obscure game.
Pre-order, yeah. Oh, there was multiple games that I only own because they were pre-orders. Yokai Watch 3 in the West, they only made enough for pre-orders. The rumor has it, I think there's only 3,000 or 4,000 copies in existence in English because it was just pre-orders. That was it.
Yeah.
That's why that game is like a $700 game.
Yeah, I remember.
It's one of those things that, okay, obscure games like that, are you pre-ordering? No? Great, you're not getting it. There was certain games, Halo, you're going to have Halo. Everyone's going to have Halo.
Madden.
And there were unforeseen circumstances with certain games where, like Fire Emblem Awakening, they were sold out of everything but pre-orders.
Yeah.
And even some with Metroid Prime, or Metroid 2, like Return of Samus on 3DS.
That's something Nintendo started doing when they did their eShop, where they sold the digital versions of those games. So what they ended up doing at GameStop, I don't know if they did it with bigger retailers, but for GameStop, I would
imagine.
They said, we're only going to send you +2 to 5 above your pre-orders, and please then promote the eShop cards and have people buy them on there. And GameStop was pissed because GameStop makes even less of a profit on those stupid eShop cards. So they were pissed at Nintendo because it's like, all right, now you're basically screwing us on your games because you want to sell them digitally. And very few people would convert. Like very few. I mean, people would rather try to find it themselves somewhere else. I think I only had a handful of times, and I think it was families that were like, okay, I'll get the digital version and we'll download it. But they did not want that shit. GameStop customers that come into the store want the physical thing. It's going to be hard to sell them on the digital. So I don't know if Nintendo's still pulling those tricks, but that's why stuff like Awakening ended up being a little bit harder to find.
Yeah. That was one that was very much like, did you pre-order it? No, I'm sorry, we don't have a copy for you. Have a nice day. And thankfully, I always did. But GameStop started leaning way too heavy to those metrics, and like by the time you're having to harass customers essentially to try and get a credit card or try and do this, like people, like that was the memes. Was the GameStop you'd walk in and they'd ask you like a shit ton of questions. Of like, oh, you want this warranty? You want this? You want that? You want like it? they became so hard selling on stuff, and it's not the employees' faults. It's the
Right.
company that's forcing them to do this in order for them to get hours.
Yeah.
And I think that's where GameStop really shot themselves in the foot versus just, yeah, okay, have people come in, maybe have like an incentive for people to get pre-orders, like, oh, the person that gets the most pre-orders gets an extra bonus or something, for the month, or some little thing like that to try and promote pre-orders.
Hmm.
But beyond that, like, that's all you needed. You didn't need them to hard sell all of these people, and that's what it turned into, and it's sad. I mean, I haven't even been to a GameStop in probably all year, actually, so far at the time of this recording.
Not even like at a mall or anything?
No, the only malls I've been to recently that I can think of don't have a GameStop in them anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, there's one also.
So
right
maybe
near...
like January, because I went to Florida Mall, so
Okay.
January I probably went to one.
Yeah, I went to Altamont Mall. I think there's a GameStop still in there. There's also
There's
one.
not.
There's not. Okay, I'm thinking of maybe the Game Attic or whatever that was.
Yeah,
And then
Altamont just has the Hudson game
That's it.
store and then the FYE, but they don't really sell games anymore.
right, and then I know there's one nearby a theater that's near us, and I know I've been in there. I went in there and I don't think I don't think I bought anything. I think my siblings and I were just killing a little bit of time before the movie started. But there's really no the problem. I mean, it's a snowball effect. The whole employee treatment, just speaking from personal experience, like that was the start of it. When they started going into making these terrible decisions of let's buy up, I forgot what fucking company that was, but it got them like the statues and all that merch that they couldn't sell, that they had to shrink out constantly. Think Geek. Yeah. Huge purchase, and it did not pay off. So all those
No, and
execs
then they started trying to do comic books in the shop.
and then the retro games they tried to do in certain ones. And now the execs are gone. They either left, they got a parachute, they got fired. From what I hear, the current regime at GameStop has no experience in this kind of retail. So they're kind of doing shit as on the fly. And it's just, I think it's a mess, man. I don't think there's any recovery from this. And I personally, I don't know if the next generation of consoles are going to lean that hard into physical game. I think they're going to lean even less into physical games as they are now. We're getting a lot of freebies through like PlayStation and Xbox's online and Nintendo's online stuff. You can stream games, you can download games, you can play games straight from the console without having to leave your home. And I think that's going to, as gamers get more used to that, there's going to be less of a need for a GameStop.
Well, there's also becoming more and more games that either the disc is just a product key, or it has a very small amount of the game on it, or that the game needs a day one patch, like guaranteed, in order to be able to play. So you still need internet, What's the point of, let me just buy this game physically when it doesn't matter? If anything happened to your PlayStation 5 or your Xbox One, you can't pop in that disc with no internet ever and play it anymore.
Yeah, I think the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot less GameStops, and that will tell the tale of whether or not they're able to bounce back by, focusing solely on games, or a different business model that they're somehow able to find, but that's going to be a tough one for them. From here on out, we're going into other media news, specifically Warner Brothers Discovery, and a little bit of gaming as well towards the end, as far as comic books, I should say. But a little update on their relaunched Max service, which was fumbled. I don't know if I know you don't have HBO Max anymore, but the way they did it, because they emailed everyone and they said, all your favorites, all your continued watching, all your history is all still there. All you have to do is log into Max. I thought that it was going to be, I don't know why I thought this, that I would just log into Max and they would change it, like it would just be Max, right? Kind of like when you get an app update.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, I get why they did it, because there's a whole, I don't know if you remember, but when HBO Max first launched for Apple devices and on Amazon, they were fighting those two companies a lot, because Amazon wanted HBO Max to be a part of their Prime offerings, basically so that they would get a cut of every subscription. And otherwise they would not have they were refusing to host HBO Max on the Fire Stick. And then there was something similar going on with Apple. Same thing. They're like, we won't host HBO Max on Apple devices unless you're a part of the Apple program. And again, you lose your subscriptions. You're going to give us a cut of all of that. So that's why HBO Max took forever to be on those services. So the reason why now what you do is you sign into your HBO Max, which I heard you can still use normally, but it'll ask you to download Max if you want those HGTV stuff, all that. So you download that and sign into that, and then you get access to your app, which to the average consumer is way too many steps. To like your mom and pop or whatever, they're not going to want to do any of that shit. They're going to be confused. They're going to forget their login. But they did it because it's technically a new app, so it doesn't fall under those old restrictions that Warner Brothers agreed upon, and now Discovery has a new deal or whatever with Amazon and Apple. But anyway, that aside, the Studio Ghibli movies are going to continue to be exclusively available as streaming on Max in spite of the relaunch. So all 22 Ghibli movies, including Spirited Away, My Neighbor, Totoro, will remain on the platform. And they will bring new content as well, like the animated series Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai. So Ghibli, they're still retaining, but just kind of wanted to give a little update on the weird launch that they gave Max.
I'm not surprised it was a little weird just because you're merging two types of services. Like, it's going to be a little hiccupy.
And someone that is the head of all of this is David Zaslav. He's the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. He was met with boos and chants from students during his commencement speech at Boston University. So the students expressed their disapproval by chanting messages like "Pay your writers" and "Shut up, Zaslav." The protest was organized by student groups and supported by unions and organizations. The selection of Zaslav as a speaker has drawn criticism from the Writers Guild, who felt that he did not prioritize writers' interests. So even though he has said, because he has to, it's PR, that he supports the writers, while that chanting was going on, I don't know if you saw the clip of it, but he was clearly pissed off. And he was like, sometimes you just have to work with people that you don't get along with. And they kept chanting. And then he was like, and sometimes people are just looking for a fight. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Zaslav. You sound like Trump.
Jeez. I mean, he is kind of a shitty person, so.
Is he a supervillain now? I think he's a supervillain.
I don't know about supervillain.
This might be his origin story.
He needs superpowers, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he still needs those.
Powers more than just cutting films.
Or, well, I've on my end hiring alleged pedos and saying that they're doing the work of God. They're on a mission from God, were his words. James Gunn himself.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's saying some wacky shit.
Scary thought.
Yeah, he's gotten really wacky. It's insane. But speaking of alleged pedo Gunn, he's the writer and director of Superman Legacy. He shared an update on the film's progress by having a meltdown on Twitter, and he tried to dismiss the recent influx of, quote, bullshit DC rumors, end quote. He mentioned that he has started storyboarding the film based on a changing script. He urged fans to only trust information from him or Peter Safran, the DC Studios co-head, and he expressed reluctance to engage in debunking false claims. He cited 3 reasons for this decision: discouraging attention-seeking fabrications, prevalence of rumors with partial truth, and his focus on storytelling. And he ended the tweet with now I'm going to go and work on these films after a fucking essay on Twitter. And I'm sitting here you're talking about how you're not going to disengage. You're going to disengage from debunking these rumors and how you're tired of the bullshit and you're going to just focus on movies. But you're on fucking Twitter still every fucking day, whining and crying about these rumors instead of supposedly working on not just all of these films, but all of these supposed video games, shows, and cartoons that are all going to have your actors and characters in those things as synergy as possible. That doesn't sound like a guy that's the head of that shit. Yeah, he'd be way too busy.
Plus it also doesn't seem like, I'm avoiding them by specifically calling them out, But understand that I'm too busy to call them out as I call them out.
Now, I'm not saying I'm solely the reason for him having that meltdown, but the day before, I put up that graphic of Superman Legacy where, according to the Hollywood Reporter, he's going to have a bunch of established DC heroes in his film, which, of course, I spun it as everything that James Gunn does. I'm spinning from now until the 10 years are up or until he's out of Warner Brothers. I'm spinning the way that they did with Zack Snyder back in 2006 of, okay, well, let's spin this into a negative. And sure enough, when it was revealed that Wonder Woman was going to be in BVS, people were saying, what the hell? They're rushing the movies. She doesn't even have her solo film yet. How come you need to establish them with solo movies first before you put them in there? So I did the same thing with Superman Legacy. I'm like, hey, what do you mean you have all these established heroes? They need their solo films. What are you doing? Guardians 3 has a bunch of new characters too. Where are their solo films? The Eternals, or what do we have? Commando, all that shit. Like,
Guardians
their solo
3, like, we'll talk about this a little more later, I guess, but I saw that one during the cruise.
Why?
Because it was,
Why'd you waste
it
your
was
time?
playing.
Save the 2
It
hours.
was playing. I felt like I walked in like halfway through at the beginning of that movie because I'm like, who the fuck are these people? Like, or I guess most of them I recognize, but I'm like, when did they join the crew? Like, when were they part of this? Also, the movie was by far, I think, the worst one.
Worse than 2 even?
It's on par with 2. Like, the first one's the only one that's good. And that was because he ripped off someone else's script. Like, when he's actually had to write these movies, they're not good. Like, they're really not good. But it was not the worst movie I saw on that cruise.
Oh, no shit.
We'll get to that when it was the second worst.
Wow.
I only saw 3 on the cruise.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to it on the Brocat block. That's good to know, though. As bad as Guardians 2. That's insane.
I also think it had the first F-bomb in MCU.
Yeah, Twitter was making a big deal of that.
Stupid. It was like the worst decision F-bomb you could make, because it was just stupid.
Well, of course it was. Was it a joke? Like, it was just a quip?
Oh, it was. So, at one point in the movie, spoilers for anyone that cares, they're in like a 1980s Earth. It's replicated or modeled after 1980s Earth. And they have the car that you push like the button on the car and then open the door in order to get in. And Nebula couldn't figure out how to do it. And Star-Lord's just like sitting there like, no, you push the button, push. And he's like, she's like, okay, I pushed the button. He's like, now what? He's like, you open the fucking door. And I'm like, really? That's your F-bomb? Like that? A throwaway joke that wasn't even funny? That was the big, oh my God, we're going to drop the first F-bomb in the MCU.
Right. Do you remember how big a deal people made when they said the F-bomb was going to be in the Snyder Cut? People had a fucking meltdown. They're like, what do you mean Batman says fuck? And when this news dropped about Guardians 3, everyone's like, oh, well, interesting.
Yeah.
It's about time they matured a little. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Also, this movie, Guardians 3, like, it had a decent soundtrack, but like even 2 had a decent soundtrack, but they didn't let the songs play at all. Like, you'd hear like the first 10, 15 seconds and then they immediately just cut that off.
Well, that's movies now, man, where it's like, oh, I recognize that. I like that song. Therefore, I like this movie.
Mean,
that's how people are.
At least
now.
1 and 2 had it where it's like, oh, they're playing like, the whole song for the opening or whatever. It's like you get half of Beastie Boys' No Sleep Till Brooklyn. Like, I like the song, but why do I only get like half of it? Before they just have a fight scene that overpowers any of the music. And I'm like, cool. That's neat.
Yeah, that sounds like a mess. Sounds like an absolute mess. But
it was.
Like, just to finish off my little thing was the day after. So I put up that story where I spun it in a negative. Superman Legacy, heroes established. They need their own solo films. And it blew up on Twitter to the point where, like, I was telling Adrian, I had to mute the tweet because it was like getting a ton of hate. And I'm like, all right, perfect. And then I just muted it. And I didn't, I would never delete it or anything like that. I'm like, no, let people get pissed off. And a bunch of them were tagging James Gunn in it, which he couldn't see because I have him blocked, but I'm sure he has a burner account. And so he's able to, just log in and
or
check
at least
it out.
someone else's account. Like,
Yeah, or they send him screenshots or whatever.
Yeah.
So the day after that, he put this long thing up. So I'm sure I'm not the only reason, but I didn't help.
Yeah.
Because that fucking tweet like blew up. And now I've got the Flash one where a bunch of people saw it and were like, that film was terrible. So I'm like, oh, early audience reviews. It's terrible. And is the gun universe set for an early Doom? Things like that. And now it's blowing up on Twitter too. So let's see if he has another thing tomorrow.
It'd be kind of funny if he does.
Oh man. Well, he's got the time for it apparently. So
apparently he does.
Here's one that you've shared on Discord, and I'm sure you've got your thoughts on it because you saw a lot of the reactions online. Marvel Comics shocked some fans with an upcoming Amazing Spider-Man issue. A leaked photo suggested the death of Kamala Khan, also known as Miss Marvel, in a scene with Peter Parker and other heroes. So despite Marvel's attempts to contain spoilers, there was an official confirmation and a special issue titled Fallen Friend, the death of Miss Marvel that shortly got announced. The event promises to be a crucial chapter in Marvel's universe, honoring the character's impact. That issue, if anyone cares, is the Amazing Spider-Man number 26, which releases on May 31st. So you saw this online first. You shared it on Discord. What was your big, non-surprise with this?
I just don't get why people suddenly were like, oh my God. Number one, people were suddenly fans. Like, suddenly there was massive fans for Kamala Khan.
Of course.
And I'm not saying she's not a somewhat popular character, but she is not a hugely popular character.
No.
Like, she's one of those ones that, yeah, some people like to see her in some content and stuff like that. But as you saw working at a comic shop, her solo stuff does not sell.
Her anything stuff doesn't sell. Her toys don't sell. Her Funko Pops don't sell. She's not a character that people buy shit of. I don't know how the show did or does, but they don't buy the merch or read the comics.
And that's the whole thing. Like, these people, it's like you all suddenly are acting like, oh my God, how dare they do this? And then it's also like, I mean, she's coming back, guys. Like, it's a comic book. And I know people are then like, oh, well, the fact that you all are just, she's coming back shows how, brain dead comics are and stuff.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I mean, it's a fact of kind of money making. They're going to have to make money off these characters eventually. And if you kill them and then bring them back later, it makes money. And for speculators, I guarantee this book will be something that they're going to be buying. Because guess what? It's a key issue. That's the death of Kamala Khan.
Because people had a meltdown. That people pretended to give a shit.
And people are already saying the reason that they're doing this is so that they can revive her and change her power set so that it's in line with the MCU.
Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they do that all the time.
And it's like, that's the reason they're doing it. Then people are like, well, they're killing off this character and stuff just for this stupid reason. It's like, yeah, because they know that the MCU people will probably buy at least issue 1 of a solo issue or a standalone one shot because of that.
Well, I believe it also keeps them from having to pay the comic creator. So anytime they change,
could be too.
Anytime they did it with
I know Gwen, Spider-Gwen.
That might be
they changed her to Ghost Spider for a while.
That was it. So because of Ghost Spider,
I don't know if she still is Ghost Spider or not, but
that was one example.
I know that was like a big thing for like at least 10 issues or so.
But now with the relaunched Miss Marvel, they're like, look, it's a different character, different superpowers. They now match the one we created over in the MCU. Therefore, we don't have to pay you royalties for this because it's technically a Disney Plus character. That's how they do that shit.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people are figuring that they're doing with this one.
Yeah, there's
and
already...
Like, yeah, it makes sense.
In previews, there's already a classified series that's coming out, and they're saying that's Miss Marvel number 1. So that's how quickly these characters come back, and anyone's surprised. I mean, you've not either you haven't read comics ever, or you're just barely getting into them because this has always been a thing. It happened the last big, and this was like a bigger deal than the Miss Marvel thing, was when in the Ultimate Universe they killed off Peter Parker, and then they had a new Spider-Man, which was Miles Morales. So the news picked it up as they're killing off Peter Parker and they're making him black. And that was the news story. I remember the local news came to the comic shop to talk about it. And we had to tell everyone, like, it's the Ultimate Universe. It's not even the main universe. And no, they're not making him black. you know,
Spider-Man now is, but not Peter Parker.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like that Punisher issue from the 80s or 90s where literally Punisher gets like skin grafts from a black guy and he is black for a little while. Like that's
it's like, no, in this it's a lot more of just, Peter Parker died. This guy, this kid is now taking up the mantle. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up as far as the fandom, because it's a lot of outrage from people that, again, don't ever even they didn't read the comic books. They just read this maybe as like, Marvel's killing off a Muslim American character. How dare they? So they're turning it political, and a female character at that. So it's one of those things that, the outrage is very superficial.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost every comic book character has died at some point. Like, if not, they will.
Or even dead characters have
popular
come back.
enough. Like, yeah.
Like, even Martha and Thomas Wayne have come back from the dead through alternate timelines.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben came back, even.
Yeah, Uncle Ben. Like, I have that with Uncle Ben and Peter, like, as, the Spider-Man in an alternate universe. Like, that's really cool. But that's the thing. Like, characters don't necessarily have to stay dead, and characters, will die. Because death of a character breeds sales. Even resurrections of a character breed sales.
Even during, like, when Deathstroke killed Ra's al Ghul in the main continuity, I was like, oh, it's Ra's al Ghul. He's like the least killable character ever. He comes back all the time. But Deathstroke, like, burned his body as well. So that's how, like, the comic was like, now, no, he's like super dead now. And I was like, why'd they do that? Like, Ra's is a popular character, but he's like he's like a notch above Ms. Marvel as far as like hardcore fandom, people that'll buy his merch. You know what I mean? Like, there's me and like maybe 10 other hardcore fans of Ra's. So I was kind of like, that's kind of a weird move. I keep reading Batman like months later, and again, main continuity, Batman's over in Ra's castle or whatever, and Ra's surprises Batman, and Batman's like, Ra's, but and Ra's is like, come on, detective, did you really believe that someone like I would stay dead? And I'm like, that's all the explanation I fucking needed. I don't need to know how molecules somehow came back from being burned. I'm like, I don't care. I'm just happy he's back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even Alfred's probably back now in the main.
Not yet. It's actually lasted way longer than I expected.
That's longer than I thought. Yeah,
he'll be back for sure.
Yeah, because that was a big thing when Tom King killed Alfred. Like, that was one of those, like, how dare he?
Yeah, maybe with the Dawn of DC thing, they'll bring him back.
Yeah, they're going to figure out some way. Alfred's not going to stay dead.
No. Well, continuing on some more comic talk, another one that you dropped on Discord, upcoming landmark comic book, Sonic the Hedgehog's 900th adventure. Sonic and his friends are engaging in a thrilling game of hot potato with the Warp Topaz, which we saw in the IDW run of Sonic the Hedgehog. A lot of people in the Sonic, because I posted this in the Sonic community on Facebook, and they were like, what the hell is a Warp Topaz? And I wanted to be like, casuals.
Read the comics. like how do you not know the comics of your Sonic series, sir?
And I linked them to the fan link or whatever of Topaz, like the wiki fandom. I'm like, here you go. And he's like, yeah, but what's it do? I'm like, I'm not going to fucking sit here and explain it to you. Read the fucking article.
Yeah, read it yourself.
But this special 900th issue is a milestone, and it's going to have all-star lineups of writers, artists, including, we've had him on the show before, Ian Flynn, Evan Stanley, Caleb Gollner, Daniel Barnes, Aaron Hammerstrom, and Nigel Keiching. The story is unfolding in 6 action-packed parts, celebrating Sonic's incredible journey. If I had to guess, it's going to be a weekly for 6 issues. There's no way they have this go on for... I'm sorry, 6 stories. So it's a special issue that'll have like an annual, basically.
Yeah, so, like an annual or
one shot. Yeah,
when, like they did for the 30th anniversary.
I know it's like a gimmick in comics to celebrate, because people were confused also in this Facebook group. They're like, there hasn't been 900.
It's not 100.
Exactly. Yeah. They're like, it's not 900 issues of IDW's run, and it's like, well, if you just think a little, it's the Archie run included in that. It would have been 900 issues.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a gimmick that especially like Marvel and DC do a lot. But for Sonic the Hedgehog, they did it for Sonic's 30th. They did it for Sonic's 25th. And I don't mind it personally. I do like that they celebrate these milestones even as minor. They'll do a 1000th one eventually, which I'm like, great. Do a 1000th issue or adventure. It's another excuse for collecting great artwork, variants, covers, online exclusives from IDW's website. I don't know. It's not any different than what other publishers do, but for some reason when IDW does it, I fall for it and I'm into the collecting.
That's because, especially with the Sonic ones, those covers are so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, there is a reason that I do every cover, and I plan to pretty much grade every cover like of Sonic because it's like, yeah, these are good. Like, I would buy prints of pretty much 99% of these cover arts and hang them up on my walls. Like, I love like all of the different artists that they get to do covers. Like, every one of them is a banger.
Yeah, so this will be a pretty big one, at least for Sonic fans. If you're into the IDW series, if for some reason you're sub to it, they should pull this for you, but just in case, it will be in I think the next previews as a one-shot. So at least for the variants that you may want, make sure to also check IDW's website because I'm sure there will be an exclusive that they put up there. And every issue, usually near the back, they'll list like the online exclusive retailer ones and they'll show the pictures of them too. So there's some pretty good ways to kind of check mark off a lot of these issues. I'm looking forward to the Knuckles 25th anniversary. That I think that's in the next year or two. And keep them coming, man. Do like a Shadow the Hedgehog 10th anniversary special. Like any excuse and we'll buy them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll keep buying every one of them.
But that does wrap up our news for this week. We do have a comment from Adrian on Patreon who said, quote, "So cool to hear Kojay's recap of the event at Snyder's screenings. I would have bought a ticket, but I am way, way too antisocial to be among a crowd. For the next SnyderCon, it should definitely be at a bigger venue. It will sell out for sure. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that the Snyderverse does get restored and in live action. No compromises." End quote. Thank you, Adrian. I'm glad you enjoyed that bonus episode with Kojay, and I'm really happy that he was able to come on and discuss it. But I do have one more from Adrian here from last week's episode. He said, quote, "I watched the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 30th special. At first I wasn't going to, but I am glad I did. At the end of the movie, Adam and Aisha were in the new command center with the other Rangers. Adam and Zach interacted on screen for the first time. They gave each other a hug. What could have Aisha and Trini interaction ended up being Aisha and Trini's daughter?" I might have misread that a little bit, but what would have been the two Yellow Rangers, basically. They made it up that way. And he continued by saying that the idea of the special came after David Yost, a.k.a. Billy Cranston, presented an idea for a story, but since David wasn't a producer, they couldn't go through with his idea. So a new story idea was written. JDF and AJJ, Amy Jo Johnson and Jason David Frank, did not sign on. I was worried about the continuity too when I saw the trailer, but they addressed all my concerns. Billy technically still lives on Aquitar with his girl. I forgot her name. He commutes. The Megazord, I wish it had been an old school one, but I like seeing Billy at the forefront. I remember Power Rangers Zeo. Billy not being the Gold Ranger pissed me off. As far as another special, there is a petition for there to be Power Rangers in Space, the Netflix special. The cast wants that too, end quote. Did you find other means to watch this, since I know you don't have Netflix?
I have not, no.
Any interest in that
I will
special?
probably see it. Yeah, I'm curious to see it. I mean, I grew up with Power Rangers. It's still a big part of my life. Super Sentai in general. I am not as deep down the rabbit hole as Julian.
Or even Nick last week. Like, he was going deep cuts on that one.
Like, there's a few people I know that are a lot deeper cut than me. I mean, I still love it. I still love watching it. I still love, buying it. I mean, it's one of the few board games that I buy is the Power Rangers board game. The minis look really cool. The art's very gorgeous on the cards. The game's decently fun. So it's one of those cool things that it's like, yeah, I love it. I definitely want to see the 30th anniversary one. Wish it wasn't exclusive to Netflix, or at least that they put it on a Blu-ray. I would buy it.
He kind of triggered a nostalgic memory for me because I am remembering that they built up a lot as to who the Gold Ranger was. They were hinting strongly that it was Billy, right, when it came out, and Who did it end up being? Tommy? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Because I do like
one of those things.
That's one thing I would not have at all remembered until I was reading his Gold Ranger Billy thing, and yeah, like that seemed to be what they were leading to, because he was in the command center a lot or whatever, like talking about the work he was doing. And let me see, before the Gold Ranger's identity, so was Billy supposed to be the Gold Ranger? It was Trait of Triforia. The writers left several red herrings to mislead the viewers into believing that the Gold Ranger was Billy, since he was never around when the Gold Ranger was active. So that was like the hint, but I don't know if it was. It sounds like it was on purpose.
And then it was, and then it was Jason, the Red Ranger.
Oh, okay. What's his name? Austin St. John or something?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's how they ended up pulling that one off, I guess. All right. Well, there you go. Lots of more Rangers talk in case you enjoyed last week's. But thank you again, Adrian, for your comments on Patreon. If you too would like to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. Let's head into the final portion of today's show, which is the Brokehead Block, what Scott and I have been up to since you last heard us. So, Scott, you mentioned briefly that you saw Guardians 3 on the cruise. What was the worst movie you saw on there, and how was the rest of the cruise?
So the cruise in general was pretty fun, relaxing, read a lot of manga, ate a lot of food, really good food. But I watched 3 movies. Guardians was probably, it wasn't the worst one. The worst one by far was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Ooh. Why would you?
Oh my
Again,
God.
why waste your time?
I don't know. I fell asleep twice during it. It had like one of the worst moments I think I've ever seen in a movie, because it had they had Kang,
Right.
or whatever.
The actor's like in trouble now for beating up on women.
Yeah, and then they also had MODOK. MODOK was the other one. Like, it was 2 villains in the movie. And they convince MODOK to go against Kang in order to save the day.
Uh-huh.
And the way they do that is literally, direct quote, is just, "Don't be a dick."
Wow. So lazy
And then
writing.
MODOK's just like, "Oh, you're right. I am a dick. How do I not be a dick?"
So
and-
it's a giant joke, like normal.
And then he dies, saving them from Kang, and his whole death scene is a joke. Like, he has like a little skinny arm or whatever, and he's like trying to like touch the face of Ant-Man's actor, and he's like, and like creeping off, and like, you did good or whatever. And I'm like, his whole death scene after saving your asses is a joke. What the fuck is this movie?
It's an MCU movie, man. That's pretty standard.
It is the most MCU movie. The other movie I watched was Strange Worlds.
That's the big flop, right?
Yeah, mostly because they never advertised any of it.
Mhm.
Like, there was just no advertisements for it. But it was okay. Out of the 3, it was probably the best that I watched.
Oh yeah,
And I was going to go see that because it was, a new Disney movie. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go see that. And I mean, I discovered the big twist like way before it was revealed at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's like a kids movie, right?
Yeah, it's a kids movie. Like, a lot of people were upset at it because the main character's kid is gay.
Oh, so they did. Wait, is this actually done by Disney, or is it one of those like Pixar ones?
No, it's done by Disney.
Okay, so they finally went gay with one of their characters.
Yeah, because all that happens is you see him like awkward in front of the character, in front of like the boy he has a crush on.
Gotcha.
And then after that scene, they just kind of mention that he has a crush on him occasionally, and that's it.
They're just sticking the tip in. They're not going to.
Yeah.
They don't want to rile up people too much.
Yeah, but it was an okay movie. Like, nothing amazing, but nothing terrible. The only other movies they were showing on the cruise was they were showing Wakanda Forever, which I didn't go watch that because it was always playing during dinner, and I wasn't skipping dinner to watch an MCU movie.
Of course.
Like,
yeah, man. Cruise dinners are prime.
Yeah, like, I'm not skipping nice 4 or 5 course meal for an MCU movie. I don't care if it's one that people claim is amazing. I'm good.
Did you end up?
What was the other one?
Did you end up disembarking?
They were showing Peter Pan and Wendy.
Oh, okay. That was the Disney Plus one, right?
Yeah,
Originally.
and I was like, I've heard trash things about that. So
Oh, it might have been good. I mean, again, don't trust the audience.
I don't know. Like people that I know personally were like, I got 10 minutes in and stopped. And they were all like, none of them talked to each other, but they all said they got about 10 to 15 minutes in and stopped.
And you normally like agree with their opinions? Like their trusted
Typically, if
opinions?
7 different people that I know all tell me the exact same time that like they all got to about the same point in the movie and stopped, that tells me something. Because they actually sat and watched it and they all stopped at about the same point, like going, this is just stupid and boring. And there are people that normally like that type of stuff. So if they don't like it, me who doesn't normally like that, ain't gonna sit there and be like, oh yeah, let me check out this live action remake of a classic Disney series. Like I hate them from the get go,
Sure.
So it's like, nah. But no, I didn't. I went off on Disney's Private Island. The other spots, I didn't really get off the ship because it's so much of a hassle to get off and then back on, especially after COVID and everything, that I'm just like, I don't feel like it just to walk around to the same places I've walked like 7, 8 times before.
But you had to go to the Mega D, man. The place in Cozumel I was telling you about, the supermarket.
Nah, I was like, I get free food here. Like I can go, relax. That was about it. It was nice.
I kind of had that prediction. I remember telling Kelly, I'm like, he's not going to disembark. He's not going to do it.
I did go off the private island.
The private island?
Yeah, Castaway Key. I went off and walked around for about an hour and a half, and then went back on. But there you don't have to do as many procedures to get off and on because it's their own private island.
There was one kid that Kelly and I saw on like one of our last cruises where he was playing a handheld. I forgot which one it was at the time. Might have been a 3DS. And then he had a Minecraft sword hanging off of his backpack. And he was like this, like,
oh God,
clearly like, this gamer or whatever. And he was like in his 20s or something. And Kelly's like, we're not going to see Minecraft Kid throughout that entire ship until we disembark. I'm like, he is going to play Minecraft throughout the entire ship. Like he's going to have food delivered to his room and that's all he's going to do. And sure enough, we did not see, we were looking for him. I'm like, well, there's got to be that kid with a Minecraft sword somewhere. Did not see him the entire cruise. We get off the ship and there he is, still playing his handheld. I'm like, you were right. Didn't see him at all. That's kind of what that reminded me a little bit of.
Yeah, see, like, I did a lot of reading, but I was up on the top deck, like, near the pool and stuff like that, reading. Like, at night, they had the live music in the atrium, so I was down, like, in there listening to the music while reading. So it was like, yeah, I was out and about. I think I spent, maybe an hour in the room before bed, and then that was about it. Like, I'd wake up and leave the room and go find spots to read and stuff like that.
You're just bringing
I didn't really stay in the room at all. No, I was going to bring my Game Boy Advance with my EverDrive, but I wasn't. The parts, my EverDrive arrived the day before I left. I also had to buy an SD card reader and stuff like that, which I wasn't able to until the day before. And I'm like, I don't have time to set this up before the cruise.
Right.
And to troubleshoot it. So
how about now? Have you gotten through it?
I have not yet. Because after the cruise, I had a bunch of, like, it was all just laundry, all last week. And then a few other things because my mom was away on her cruise.
Oh, interesting.
It was just me and my dad. Yeah.
I think they all went together.
So she went with my sister and brother-in-law and my nieces. Because my niece graduated from college. So that was like she wanted to go on a cruise. It was Royal Caribbean. I'm like, no, I'm good. Royal Caribbean's terrible.
Gotcha.
I skipped that. Thank God I did. The food was very salty. Apparently Royal Caribbean does not refurbish the rooms at all. Yeah. So this was like second ship that they ever built. And there was like little sticky foam holding things up on the wall. And like it looked really bad. They will clean your room once a day. So you have to choose whether you want it in the morning or at night.
Right.
Instead of the normal where they set up everything and make it look nice during the daytime and then do a turn down service later in the day. So like they've cut a lot of corners. Yeah,
they're not as bad as Carnival still, but
no,
they're definitely
the mid-range.
Mid-tier, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's not as expensive as, that's the reason we haven't gone back on the Disney ones, even though we can get discounts through people we know, like it's it's still like really fucking pricey. So last couple times Kelly and I have gone, we did Norwegian and we did the Royal Caribbean. And I think Norwegian slightly edged it out because of the food. I could be misremembering that, but I know that we were like, okay, if maybe when Leo gets older, we'll splurge and go for a Disney one because it's better for kids. But if it's just Kelly and I, there's a lot more for adults to do on Caribbean and our Norwegian. Like one of those has a nightclub even in there. So it's definitely more adult oriented.
The newer Disney also have a nightclub now.
Oh, really?
They have 4 or 5 on the newer ships.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's adults only after like 8 p.m.
Throughout the ship area. Or just okay.
No, they have like a nightclub area and they use it for daytime events and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
For families during the day. And then at a certain time in the night, it turns into a strictly adults only nightclub. They'll do adult only shows for some of the musicians or the magicians and all that. Yeah. And the comedians will have their adult only shows during that.
Well, that's good. Fine. Like did they have gambling on there? Because I know they didn't before.
They do not. No, They still don't have gambling.
That's the other thing.
They have bingo.
Well, yeah. I guess. But I also really like the casinos at the Caribbean and Norwegian. That'd be nice though if they eventually did like a casino on the Disney ones, but maybe over time.
Yeah. I mean, there's more ships coming out, so.
Well, awesome. I'm glad your cruise went well and that you came back safe and sound. The stuff that I had going on this week is I was watching an Instagram, which was originally a TikTok, but I go on Instagram stories, and there was this guy pretending to be a 90s kid and being sick from school, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. And he did the Maury thing, like, oh my God, he's a kid watching. You are not the father. Clearly not kid material that kids should be watching, but seeing the guys dancing and doing backflips and shit, celebrating, like, I am not your dad, huh? Like, imagine being one of those kids years later. Like, that guy was really happy to not be my dad.
Yeah.
Like, damn. So I then went into the rabbit hole last night of, well, let's see the best of you are the father and you are not the father. And there's the energy these dads get, or not dads, I should say, to not be like a father, like, holy shit. And people in the comments are like, yeah, they don't have to pay fucking child support. They just basically won the lottery.
Like they were just like, oh, thank God. Like that ain't mine.
And I love how
come
quickly
back on the show multiple times.
The fucking audience flips on him. Like, fuck you piece of shit. Oh, you're not the dad. It's only they're like high-fiving him and like clapping. You fuckers. Like,
like, oh, he isn't a piece of shit. All right.
He was right. Therefore, he is not a bad guy. Like, even though some of them were like, if it's my kid, I won't take care of him. I'll kick them both to the curb. Like, there's been those guys too. Like, damn.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, he's right though. So he's cool.
Yeah, he's fine. And then
he wasn't the father.
The weird thing is, and someone pointed it out in the comments, and I'm like, yeah, why is that? I don't understand why. Like someone in the comments said, I don't feel as bad when like the moms, it's not the father and the moms go run back and cry. I don't feel as bad as compared to like when a dad is on there and he's like, no, that is my kid and I love him and I'm going to take care of him. And then the mom is either like, yeah, it is your kid, or no, you're not his dad. I don't care how much you love him. And the dads are like crying. And then it comes out that it's not the father and the dad's just like destroyed. And people are like, well, why do I feel worse for the dads than the moms?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't get why. And I think it's because there's this person that wants to be a part of that child's life. And the child does not have a father now, potentially, because they're going to go find the real one or whatever. Like sometimes there'd be the happy endings where the dude would be like, I don't care if I'm not the dad, I'm still the dad. And they would like still like stay together and they would love him. Like there'd be those like heartwarming ones, but there's a bunch that are just like, the moms are like mean as fuck. Like they're like, see, I told you, you're not dad material. Fuck you. And the dude's just like destroyed on stage.
Dude just starts crying. You're like, geez, the hell?
Even like 9-year-old me, like, wow. Not understanding the deep implications of any of this. Man, I'm going to do more of that tonight. I'm going to do some more Maury because I love that shit.
That'll be fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually watching some YouTube tonight after stream because I found a new YouTube channel that I've been watching. It's a dude that just like travels on planes.
Like just
That's
flies? What do
pretty
you mean?
much.
What's the gimmick though? Like he
Like,
reviews them?
he loves airplanes, stuff like that. So he just like flies and talks and gives commentary. Like he reviews some of the airlines. He'll talk, like show some of the experiences and stuff like that. He did one recently, not his most recent video, but the second newest one, which is what got me to it, is that he went around the world in 80 hours.
Oh shit.
So he actually like kept going on planes and just trying to get, okay, let me go around the world in 80 hours through airline flights.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. So I was watching some of this stuff and he's like, he goes to like different places in Africa that you would never expect because he's like, yeah, this is deemed the riskiest place for a Westerner to go in Africa. So we're going there,
Holy shit.
or like, oh, this is, the most dangerous airport in Pakistan. Yeah, sure. Let's go there.
And nothing happened. Like there's not even like a
Yeah.
close call or anything.
So far in the videos I've watched, no, but he did do a Greyhound bus. Like he started the Greyhound bus trip from LA to New York, but it had to be canceled.
How come?
And so he got to Arizona or no, New Mexico, Albuquerque, or was it Texas? Somewhere in there. And the roads were going to be snowed over for so long that he's like, I can't afford to just wait here a week.
Oh, okay.
So it's like I have to fly back before the snow like hits.
Oh, gotta try again. They're in the summer.
So yeah, he's gonna try again because he's like, I wanted to, but his experience with the Greyhound was very much like, yeah, that was his riskiest thing. So he's like, oh, okay, cool. There's just a dude like talking to himself and yelling and screaming at himself while rocking back and forth in the seat in front of me. That's cool.
Oh, I'm sure he meets all kinds of characters.
Yeah, or he's like, oh, that dude just got kicked off the bus by the bus driver because he started smoking weed on the bus. Or like he was at one of the bus stations at 11 p.m. and the guy tried robbing the store and got stopped by security, and now he's just like yelling and screaming, and he's like, I just want to go. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like the typical Greyhound experience.
Right.
But
Probably a lot of homeless too.
yeah, I mean, because it's the cheapest option you have for if you want to just travel.
Yeah.
Because I think he got it all the way to like Texas or New Mexico for like $100.
Well, name drop the channel. Do you happen to have the name?
Yeah, give me one sec. On YouTube, you can open up Noel Phillips.
Noel Phillips?
Yeah. He just does some really cool airline stuff. If you want to see different flights, different airports. He also went on a bus ride through India.
Gotcha.
That was fun because he got woken up by some dudes claiming he was like in their spot or whatever and yelling and screaming at him and
I wanted it to be tough Indian
in the
greasers.
foreign language. Like, yeah.
Hair slicked back.
But
They
it's
got
just
little
this
pocket
British
knives.
dude. I'm like, I don't know how this dude goes to some of these places and it's just like, no, this is fine.
If I die, I die.
Yeah. He has a wife and kids and he's just like, no, I'm going to travel without them.
No, that's wild.
He uploads every Sunday.
Okay, good to
Which
know.
is amazing that he's able to fly around and do all this stuff and like record enough to upload every Sunday.
Exactly. Cool, man. Well, thanks for the channel recommendation. And you mentioned your stream. So before we sign off, please let them know about Lazy Gaming Guys, what the stream is, and where they can find you.
So, Lazy Gaming Guys, we're 3 guys that stream every Wednesday night at about 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Depends on the night. Sometimes we run a little late. We also have been doing a game club. So it's like a book club, except with video games.
Oh, cool.
Tonight we'll be finishing up the game club with Final Fantasy II. That was the first game in the game club. So you can kind of hear our thoughts on it, and viewers are allowed to participate as well. If you want to, if anyone wants to play along or anything else, they can. And then they can join in the discussion. So we'll be doing that tonight. And then we'll also be deciding our next game for the game club. But that will be tonight. I have no idea what the next game is going to be. So that'll be fun. But it's a nice little way to play some games you might never play normally or that you've kind of wanted to play. Like in this case, I've wanted to play Final Fantasy II for years at this point and just never got around to it. and I actually had a lot of fun with it. I even got the platinum trophy.
Oh,
So
there you go.
it was a lot better than I expected based on everyone's reviews.
Another example
So
of it keeps coming up.
yep. So join us there. I'm also on the Ronin Council podcast.
Mhm.
You can find that on the Film Exiles SoundCloud, I believe it is. But I know on Discord or Twitter, you can find Ronin Council, and there's links and everything else on there. But I do that with one of the other co-hosts, Sam, and Millennial Mike. That's a really cool one. You should check that out if you like anime and anime news. And yeah, that's pretty much all I'm part of currently.
Very good. And you will find links to everywhere you can find Scott as well in the description of today's episode. Otherwise, if you head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com, you can also find the link to our Discord and other places where you can interact with us. But this week, if you are using a podcast app to listen to us that supports reviews, take a moment, if you haven't already, leave us a review, the full stars or whatever they have on there, or written review for Apple Podcasts. And it just helps fight some of the anti-Snyder or pro-gun reviews that we get sometimes that try to drown out the channel. So to help offset some of that, just take 2 minutes and leave us a review. That also includes on Facebook. So if you like us on Facebook pages under Brocat Core, you can leave us a review on there, and that'll combat one of the 0 stars that we got from a James Gunn fan. So that'll really help us out. But thank you once again for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, joined by Scott, and Brocat Core. All will be well. So I asked you about your favorite Mortal Kombat character, and I'm going to ask you then, who's your least favorite Mortal Kombat character? While you think on that, I know I mentioned earlier, Sub-Zero is my favorite character, so naturally my least favorite one. I don't hate Scorpion, and I think there's worse ones than him, but he's the rival. I gotta dislike Scorpion. He's like the Charizard of the Mortal Kombat universe.
Yeah.
He's also the most popular one. So who's your least favorite Mortal Kombat character?
See, I've never been a big fan of Bo Rai Cho.
Oh, is that the big drunk guy?
Yeah. I've never really gotten the appeal.
But he's another Joe character, right? Don't you like those guys?
I don't know. I don't see him as that much of a joke character so much as he's just a weird take on a drunken fist master.
You're like, I do, but not like that.
Yeah, I have standards, sir. And Bo Rai Cho does not meet those.
I expected Julian to really not like Bo Rai Cho because I don't know if you know, but that's a play on the Spanish word borracho, which is Spanish for a drunk.
Oh, see, so Julian probably hates him.
Julian fucking hates Bo Rai Cho.
That is new LGG lore confirmed.